Hello loves, it is Tatiana Vogt here, and today we're gonna be doing a reading wrap-up of all of these bad boys. Okay, so the first book we're gonna go over is Monday's Not Coming by Tiffany D. Jackson, and this is a story about a 8th grader whose friend goes missing and nobody is as worried about her as she is. The little excerpt on the back is, "This is the story of how my best friend disappeared and nobody noticed she was gone except me, and how nobody cared until they found her 1 year later." All right, let's see what Past Me thought. Okay, so I am finally listening to the audiobook for Monday's Not Coming, and so far I'm feeling really emotional, right? Like I feel a lot of different emotions, like anger, frustration. I can feel sadness, pre-sadness. Nothing has really happened yet, but I feel like it's going in a direction that's gonna make me really sad, so it's starting to make me sad already. I think right now the main things that I'm feeling is kind of frustration and anger. I think the book is really well done. I like that it's told, like, the multiple storylines that we're following. I think it's done really well. Okay, further into it, I kind of hate this book. I don't hate this book at all. I hate people. That's what I hate. I hate people. I hate how dismissive. The reason why I dislike YA and middle grade books so much is because adults dismiss children so much, and it's so just ridiculous. Just because a child is young doesn't mean that you shouldn't listen to them. Like, why don't people take kids seriously? Like, I get that kids can lie, so can adults. I get that they can misunderstand certain situations, that they can make things up in terms of play, that they don't understand certain things. But if you talk to a kid as if they're an adult, usually you will get, like, honest things from them. I think that's the thing that bothers me. It's funny because all of this stuff is so subtle, but it's making me so angry, as if it was like a super big part of it. But like, I realize that I am more upset than this book may call for. So keep that in mind if you're listening to this and you haven't read this book yet. But I do think this is a good book so far. I did finish Monday's Not Coming and I cried. Yeah, yeah, this was emotional. I'm gonna give it 5 stars right now. I think it did something very interesting, very heart-wrenching, very well done. I want to say fantastic, but it almost feels like how much this wrecked me. It almost feels bad to say that this was a fantastic book, but it was a really, really, really good book. I would highly recommend it. Just, it's an emotional one. Okay, as you can see, this was an emotional roller coaster. There were things about it that I really enjoyed. Overall, I think this was an awesome book. I am interested in reading it again and seeing how tight certain things hold up on the second read, but definitely with the first read, this was a 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. Okay, next up we have Tweet Cute by Emma Lord, which is a fun YA rom-com about 2 high schoolers who end up running their own family's restaurant's Twitter account and end up in a Twitter war against each other, at the same time falling for each other without realizing it in a different area, and just all kinds of little things that they are dealing with. So let's see what Past Me thought. Good morning. So I have started listening to the audiobook for Tweet Cute while I am working on the July Patreon reward art, and I am loving this book. It's a YA romance and it's so adorable. I love the characters. I love the premise. I love everything that's going on so far. I think I'm almost halfway through it. I love dual perspective, so we've got both of the like love interest perspectives. There is a little bit of LGBTQ plus representation, as the popular kid, which makes me so happy, is gay, and I love that. I love that so much because he's like the golden boy, and it's all like, thank you that that's not a problem. Like, he's awesome and I love him. He's so not really a big part of the story, so like, please don't get it twisted. This is not a rep book. It's very generic white people, as far as I can tell, that are pretty much straight, but with a character who's popular who isn't. Okay, so I have finished Tweet Cute, and it was really cute. It made me more emotional than I probably should be. The ending was nice, like I liked it. It wasn't amazing or anything, but right before the ending, I don't know, it did some things. I liked it. High 4 stars, possibly a 5 stars. I'm kind of thinking this is a 5 stars, but because I don't have that like for sure definite, this is a 5 stars, I'm all like, maybe it's not, but I feel like it is. So I don't know, we'll see what I think at the end. As you can see, this was a pretty fun one. I really enjoyed it. It was really simple, really cute, your typical romance, and I really enjoyed it. I ended up giving it a pretty high rating. I wouldn't say it's the best of the best, but it's definitely a really enjoyable, really fun rom-com, and I would recommend it for people who are interested in romance. And yeah, I thought it was a lot of fun. So I think right now I'd probably put it at a 4 star because I did really enjoy it, but I wouldn't necessarily consider it a favorite. So even though it is 5-star material, I think I'm gonna keep it at a high 4 stars. Next up we have I Want to Be Where You Are by Christina Forrest, and this is basically a novel about a girl who wants to be a dancer and wants to do an audition in New York, but her mother doesn't want her to go, so she ends up kind of sneakily doing a road trip, and it's kind of about the rekindling of an old friendship that could be something more. Okay, so I think I'm gonna read I Want to Be Where You Are next, just because I'm pretty sure I have the audiobook for it ready to go. So that one should be easy. Okay, continuing on with I Want to Be Where You Are. I started reading this earlier today while I was still working. I was doing tickets and stuff. And I'm enjoying this one so far. You know, she's being faced with different issues and different things coming up, and it's basically, I guess, about her coming to terms with previous things that were not settled, and then also experiencing new things and understanding what she wants or something like that. I'm still not very far into it, so a lot of this is me guessing.
Shaking as I find a place off to the side of the bar. A few dancers shoot sad glances my way, but I hold my head high.
Okay, I just finished I Want to Be Where You Are by Christina Forrest, and I really enjoyed it. It definitely had that, some of those like YA themes that I'm not a big fan of, but I enjoyed it. It didn't, like, I saw it, I addressed that it was there, but it didn't bother me for some reason. I don't know if it's just because I think it made sense for the story. I don't know. I liked it. I liked it a lot, but it's funny because I'm sitting up here like, yeah, this was a really good book. I don't think I'd give it 5 stars though. And I'm not entirely sure why. I didn't love it. I guess that's probably the reason. But yeah, I think I'll give this 4 stars. Good book. Okay, admittedly, there was part of me, I guess, that wasn't fully sure about this book. I didn't necessarily think I was going to love it, but I did think it was really enjoyable, and I'm glad that I was wrong with my initial opinion. I think this was a great read. Despite it being a YA, I find that I tend to enjoy YAs quite a lot, but when there is the typical YA drama, which is in this book, I usually don't like that aspect and end up not enjoying it, but it really made sense here. I felt like it fit nicely and it wasn't obnoxious and annoying as an adult reader, so I think this was still a fun read. And just overall, I think I liked it way more than I thought I was going to, so I'm pretty happy with this one. Next up, we have Taproot by Keezy Young, and this is a graphic novel that is basically about a man who works at a plant nursery and can see ghosts, and there's a couple of things that happen revolving that. There's LGBT rep in here, and there's a little bit of a romance that happens as well, along with a additional little storyline. So, a story about a gardener and a ghost. Hello, Hamill. Can I get some advice? I'm kidding. Wait, I should do this a little longer. Hello, Hamill. Can I get some advice? Of course. What can I help you with? I just wondered how often I should be watering this orchid. It'll be happiest if you let the soil dry out in between waterings. I'm gonna seriously read this now, and I will check back in with you later. Okay, I am still reading Taproot. I'm almost done. I got called in towards the very end. I was almost finished with it. I was getting super emotional and I was like tearing up, and then I got a phone call. So I'll finish this in a second. Okay, so I just finished Taproot. It was, as I expected, a really quick, warm and fuzzy, cute queer romance, and I loved it. I loved it a lot. I will say it did have the cheesy effect, and another thing that I noticed in some of these, which I kind of like, but I don't know if everyone will, is that there are parts that I feel like is kind of just like missing, like dialogue, not necessarily dialogue, but you know, like, you know, there are mini blanks within the story, which I think when it's in a visual format, a lot of the illustrations kind of carry the story along. So I usually feel like it works out. But I did notice that, like, for instance, they'd be interrupted in the middle of a sentence or something like that, and they didn't do the normal thing that you see where, like, they have that, like, line to show that they were going to continue, but they didn't. It just would kind of, like, stop and then not pick up, which I noticed, but I don't mind. I'm just calling it out because I just read it, and I think it happened, like, 2 times or something. But yeah, I really liked it. High 4 stars? Tempted to say 5 stars, but I don't necessarily think it was like a favorite. I'm torn. 4 stars, 5 stars? 4 stars, 5 stars? Definitely high 4 stars at the least. I really enjoyed this. And not that I'm kind of all like, do they have another one? Like, can I get the next one? Where it at? I'm probably gonna look into that. It's possible that this is available to continue, but yeah, that was nice. All right, as you see, I really enjoyed it. This was another book that was just really fun to read. It was a super quick read. I find that usually with graphic novels. I'm amazed at kind of how much was able to be like fit into this. I, again, wouldn't say that this is like through the roof amazing, but I did really enjoy it. I thought it was really cute. I think it was really well done. I love the art style. I love the little romance aspect of it. I liked the supernatural story that they had going on and kind of the like issue that needed to be resolved. And I think it was a fun read. I would recommend it. I guess this one would also be another high 4 stars, almost 5-star book for me. Next up, we have The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. And this is kind of an epic, I think it's supposed to be an adult fantasy. And there's a lot of different storylines that we're following. It's basically revolving around a kind of prophecy or a legend of a dark lord type thing that is going to come back if the royal bloodline isn't continued. So there's basically a royal bloodline that is keeping everybody safe, and there's a bunch of people who keep trying to cut off that royal bloodline, and then there's these different I guess, kingdoms basically that don't necessarily get along, and there's just all of these different things that are happening. So let's kind of see how I end up feeling about this in the past. This is one of my tabletop TBR picks, but it's technically a mood read pick, and I could pick something else because it's one that I have flexibility and freedom when it comes to picking it. But I really wanted to read this because this was another book that was gifted by Allison, and it's been on my TBR for years. Okay, so I'm like 50 pages into The Priory of the Orange Tree. As to be expected, a lot is going on. For a second, I almost thought that this was written by a POC author, which it doesn't seem to be. But I did see when I was finding my place in the book that there is an author's note that says, the fictional lands of the Priory of the Orange Tree are inspired by events and legends from various parts of the world. None is intended as a faithful representation of any one country or culture at any point in history. But I can just see, like, I feel some cultural influences, and I like it. I think it's really nice. Not that it's bad, but I will say I was a little bit bummed when I was like, wait, is this a POC author? And then I looked back and I was like, oh, it's not an issue, obviously. But I was admittedly a little disappointed because I wasn't paying attention originally, like when I started. So when I had that thought, I was like, oh, that would be really awesome, because I am trying to read just in general from more POC authors. Okay, so I'm continuing to read The Priory of the Orange Tree, and I don't know, I'm not as engaged as I would like to be. But I think it's just because, you know, there's a lot of setup still happening. But yeah, I do find that I am feeling rather anxious. I don't know, like I'm not doing what I should be doing. I was giving myself the chance to work on, you know, sketching and, you know, just like working on different art pieces and whatnot. But I feel like I can't enjoy the me time because there's like other stuff that I should be doing, but I don't entirely know what all of that is. I feel weird and not as engaged. Okay, so I am 200 pages in, and although I find some of the stuff going on interesting, I'm just not super invested in it yet. Like, I don't know why, because there are, like, the different storylines are subjectively interesting. I think the writing is good, and I think that the author is doing a good job with giving you enough information for each kind of storyline that, like, you understand what's going on. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's because I'm listening to the audiobook, which I do really enjoy because, like I said, I like the narrator a lot. But yeah, I don't know if it's because I'm listening to the audiobook. I don't know if it's because this kind of fantasy just isn't my thing. I don't think that's the case because, like, I enjoyed Game of Thrones quite a bit. I think this book has done a pretty good job at introducing some relatively interesting things, but then at the same time, not enough to fully... I don't know, I think I personally prefer stories that have single characters. Because I don't know what this book is about. Like, I can't tell you what this book is about.
The sister, Amina, was to be crowned, with Princess Madonna as heir apparent. A few days after the event had been taken, Ian made her way to the royal apartments. Usually, the early morning was peaceful. She did not shake the tension in her back.
Good morning. So today is Saturday, June 19th. I'm starting the day trying to finish The Priory of the Orange Tree. I have about 3.5 hours left to go, so I'm pretty far into it. I think it started with the almost 10 hours, like 9 hours and 40 minutes or something. So I've gotten a good chunk into it. There's parts of it that I really like. There's still parts of it that I'm kind of all like, but But yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Like, stuff is going down. I don't know. I think what keeps on happening in this book for me is that we get a storyline that I'm all like, yeah, this is interesting. I'm behind that. And then it kind of shifts to something else. And then I'm all like, oh, okay. Okay, I guess this is interesting. I'm behind that. And then it kind of like shifts. And it's not like really shifting. Like, all of this stuff is present. I think it's all very clear, but like the focus in the moment keeps changing, which makes sense because there's all of these different, like, I don't know. We'll see how I feel about it at the end, because right now I'm kind of like, I'm almost indifferent. It's so sad because I've been waiting to read this book for years. Okay, so I have finished The Priory of the Orange Tree. I really liked it. It was really enjoyable. I didn't love it. I never kind of found that thing that like really connected with me, but I did really enjoy it, and I have a feeling that if I read it again, I might enjoy it more on the second read. We'll see, because I think it would be fun to, you know, read it again knowing everything that I know and seeing like how it shows up in the story. I don't know, I like seeing how pieces fit together, and there's a couple of books that I've read recently that I think I missed that during the first read and would benefit from it during the second read. So in this case, I did enjoy it quite a bit. I would probably say high 3 stars. Yeah, and I'm assuming that on a second read, this will probably make a 4 stars, but I think I need a second read first. But yeah, it was enjoyable. Lots of kind of epic. It made me think a little bit towards the end of like D&D stuff, which is what I totally want from fantasies, like epic fantasies, is I want to have those vibes, because I'm always looking for inspirations for my own games. I'm a dungeon master or a game master, so that makes me very happy. But again, I feel like there was just some disconnect for me, which is why it's not higher on the first read. Okay, yeah, so this one was a bit of a doozy. There was so much kind of involved in it, which I think is really interesting and I think is a cool aspect to it, but because I didn't know anything about the story going into it, I feel like that actually hurt this book more than it helped. I tend to like going into books blind, but because I just had no clue, a lot of it was me just being all like, okay, information, all right. So I would say I didn't enjoy the experience for a majority of the book because I just wasn't really involved. I thought a lot of interesting thing was happening and I did want to know where all the connections were, and once that started actually happening, I did start getting into it. But for the first read, I feel like this was definitely a 3-star experience. That being said, I want to read this again. Like, now that I know what it's all about, I know kind of what's happening, I feel like I would enjoy the experience more the second time around and might even bump it up a star. I can't say that for sure because I don't plan on rereading this anytime soon, at least not until later in the year or next year, or later, who knows, but yeah, I did enjoy it while also not fully enjoying it, if that makes sense. So I feel like I should also mention that I'm not necessarily the fantasy reader. I love the idea of fantasy. I'm really big into things like Dungeons and Dragons, which is creating worlds in a fantasy setting. Most of the time, it doesn't have to be, but most of the time. So like, I like it, but when it comes to reading fantasy, I haven't really found my thing. So take my rating on this with a grain of salt. Like I said, this might be something that I will enjoy quite a lot more on the second read, and I just need to get more used to reading like epic fantasies because it's a lot of work. But I got through it, even though it's a chunk. Next up, we have They Both Die at the End by Adam Silvera, and this one I didn't know what to expect. It's basically a story about a world where there's this thing called a death cast, where within 24 hours of your death, you get a call saying that, you know, this is your death day, and you can basically do whatever with that knowledge and try and live your best last day, but you have no clue exactly when it's going to happen or how it's going to happen. And in this story, we have two young boys who have both received their death call, and to not knowing what exactly to do with their last day, they end up kind of connecting with each other through an app that connects people on their last day, and they go through the motions of living their last day. And let's see what I thought.
I'm going to die today. Forget that. Warning is too strong.
Okay, so I am starting They Both Die at the End by Adam Silvera, and I don't know much about this book other than the fact that it is supposed to be about two characters who are supposed to die, and that's it. So I'm assuming it's about morality, and it's about the relationship that these two characters build while they're having their last day. Good morning! So I'm reading They Both Die at the End, and surprise, surprise, it's emotional. It's actually funny because it's kind of not, like, it is, but I think it's really beautifully done, and I like the characters, and I like, it's really well done so far. I'm like really enjoying this book. Granted, one of the characters, is a little annoying. It's funny because for the most part, I don't like it. I like the two characters together, the two, like, main characters that we're following. I really like them together because I think they balance each other out, and I really like that aspect really, really well. But there was a scene where one of them, you know, was kind of just all like, nope. And I was all like, come on, you stupid. But fortunately that didn't last very long, or else I probably would have, like, rage quit the book. No, I wouldn't, but I would have been very annoyed. Because it plays off of that not communicating thing that I hate, but I don't actually feel like this book has that issue. So yeah, I'm really happy. I'm really happy with it so far. And it's about an emotional topic, you know, obviously, because it's like two characters who are about to die, you know? So there's a lot to, like, it raises a lot of really good questions, and it's interesting how a book about people dying is really talking about how to live. Okay, so I just finished They Both Die at the End, and this was a really, really good book. It was a really beautiful, beautiful book. This is a really good book. I don't know what to say other than 5 stars for sure. This book made me smile. It made me think. It kept me engaged throughout the entire thing. It made me feel lots of feelings, and as most of my 5 stars, it made me cry. So I really enjoyed it. Alright, okay, so I loved it. I absolutely adored this book. There is LGBT rep in here. We have some POC characters, and we have a interesting way of exploring the topic of death and living. I felt like this was emotional in many ways. It wasn't as depressing as you would think it would be considering the topic. There's a lot of like hope and beauty within it. I really liked the contrast of the characters. I really liked the little snippets that you got of other people connected to it, and I think it was really well done in this case. I think it would be interesting to see more stories within this world. I did see some of the negative reviews was around the idea that they thought, you know, who really cares about these two characters? It would be interesting to explore that topic with more, you know, serious characters, but I actually really liked the characters and I really liked the experience and was really happy with it, to the point where this is definitely a new favorite of mine. So this is a high 5 stars. It's definitely going into my favorites of the year, and yeah, big fan. big fan personally. So yeah. Okay, next up we have Stephen King's 1922, which it's a story about a man who kills his wife in 1922, and stuff happens after. Okay, so I finally started Stephen King's 1922. It's interesting how it started. I don't know anything about this, but it's interesting. It kind of starts like right in the meat of it, and I like want to know what's gonna happen. Like, is this gonna be like a haunted house situation? I hope it is. It's really short though. Like, how much is left? I don't know. Okay, so I ended up taking a bath and I finished reading Stephen King's 1922. It was interesting. I like some of the things that it was doing, but like, it was 3 stars. It was good, but I don't know. Okay, so yeah, I don't exactly 100% know how to talk about this book. It is a novella. It's pretty short. The kind of like murder aspect happens pretty early on, so that is not a spoiler. That's what the whole book is pretty much about. It's done in a semi-interesting way. Part of me didn't fully get the point, like why was I supposed to care? I do think some of it was pretty interesting. Yeah, I do think Stephen King is pretty good at writing about characters who are on the brink of madness and or going mad or have that kind of like crazy effect, and that was an interesting aspect. I just didn't really enjoy this experience personally. I feel like it had potential and it could have gone in different ways to make it more interesting. But yeah, I don't know. There were some things that I thought were cool and some that I don't. It's hard to talk about because anything aside from what I've said before would be a massive spoiler. Or I guess maybe not a massive, but could be a spoiler. So yeah, I don't know. I ended up giving it, I think, 3 stars. I feel like this is a pretty solid 3 stars. I feel like it was pretty good. Don't really have anything against it. Don't necessarily think I'll be reading this one again. But yeah, I didn't love it, didn't hate it. It was a book. Next up we have The Maidens by Alex Michaelities. And this is a story, basically a dark academia vibe about this group like of girls at this college that are kind of called the Maidens that kind of keep getting murdered, and a teacher who is suspected of murdering them, and the aunt of one of the girls at the school who was friends with one of the maidens that got murdered ends up going to kind of investigate, and it's kind of that whole kind of experience trying to figure out who done it, even though a lot of people kind of aren't listening and aren't believing. So she's trying to just gather evidence and prove, you know, something that a lot of people don't want to believe necessarily. So yeah, let's see how I thought about this. I did start reading The Maidens, which so far I'm enjoying. I do want to read more of this. It seems like it's a murder mystery type thing with a dark academia vibe. I was assuming originally was being told by a student, but it's actually not. Our narrator is someone who's, I think she's like 31, which relatable. And yeah, she's going back to the college and I guess looking into things. I don't know how far things are gonna happen. We've been getting a lot of setup, a lot of her backstory, a lot of things kind of unrelated. And so I'm like, when's it gonna happen? Where are we gonna, like, it hints at it, there's things happening, there's this, and then it's all like, by the way, so my life has been blah blah blah. But I feel like it's been done in such a good way that I haven't mind. So I'm not complaining. I am enjoying the book quite a bit so far, but I am still pretty early on, so we will see how that goes. Okay, so somehow I managed to do everything off of my to-do list today, except I haven't picked up The Maidens yet. So since I managed to clear my to-do list, I did all the stuff I had planned and more. I think for the last hour or so tonight, I'm going to try and read as much as I can of The Maidens so that I don't have a butt ton to read tomorrow. Yeah, I'm excited because I was enjoying it when I was reading it. There are a couple of things that I'm kind of like confused about, but for the most part, I do like. Good morning. So today is Monday, June 14th, and I am continuing with The Maidens. I am trying to finish this today so I can leave my NetGalley review. I am a little bit bummed because I feel like the time constraint is making the process of reading a little less enjoyable than I would like. I kind of want it to be a de-stressor, but like I'm like, oh, I need to try and get through this. That being said, I am still actually enjoying the book. I do like that the main character is older. I believe she's like 36. I'm currently 30, gonna turn 31 in a couple of months. So I can relate a little bit more to her than say a college student. But at the same time, I kind of wonder why the person that we are experiencing this book through, which is about things happening on a college campus, is somebody who isn't really at that college. I think part of me would have preferred if she was somehow related to the college in a more substantial way than she actually is. But I feel like it's also nice having her not be as connected, because then you can relate to her ignorance more. Like the fact that I'm ignorant about everything going on and she is as well seems more, you know, like you have that similar connection and you can learn through her instead of her having a bunch of knowledge that you don't. Although she does, like, don't get me wrong, she's not completely ignorant, but I think that's the reason why. That being said, I'm only like 45% into the book. I'm still reading it on my Kindle, but I have been trying to update my progress in the actual book so that I can see how far into it I am. Okay, great news. Since I have the physical copy of this already, I don't have to rush to finish reading this, which I think is going to make this more enjoyable. I am going to try to read as much as I can today on the Kindle version, but basically what's going to happen is this is going to be archived and then I still have time to give my feedback. So as long as I finish this, not a big deal. And then I started listening to the audiobook now for The Maidens, which is nice. And yeah, we'll see how this goes. Good Good morning. So today is Monday, June 21st. I ended up starting this morning working on editing videos, and now I'm working on tickets and stuff for work. So I busted out the audiobook for this because I found it on Scribd. Woo woo. I'm not a big fan of Scribd, by the way. I've had so many issues, but this is the third book since I rejoined. So at least I'm getting my money's worth this time. Sometimes I'll only get like one book before they're like, nah, son, you can't listen to anything until like a couple of days before your thing renews. And it's all like, excuse me? I have to admit, update on the Maidens. When I was physically reading this book, I was pretty into it. Basically until like the point of the book actually happened. Like I was a little bit confused, but I was like into it. I was all like, okay, we're learning all of this stuff about this character. It's gonna have some big significance towards everything. I like the main character, like cool. I'm behind this. And then we kind of get to, you know, like this is about murders and trying to figure out who done it, right? And we get to the college and I'm kind of like, why is our main character? Like, what is their connection and why did we learn all of that other stuff? Like, I'm assuming it's going to be important later on, but right now I'm kind of just all like, I don't, like, why? Like, I almost feel like I'm reading two different stories.
It's because it never went anywhere. In some weird way, I'll always be there.
Tell me that voice isn't but like everything he's saying is obviously like a touch of creepy because he's this like killer is what you're under the impression of, is he's the killer, he's the bad guy, he's got problems. But that voice actor okay, I am going to say that I do kind of find the main character a little bit annoying. Like in the beginning I was digging it because she's older and I was all like relatable, even though she's experienced stuff I have been fortunate enough to not have to go through. I don't necessarily think she's particularly smart. She keeps doing things and I'm all like, okay, so things are starting to turn around and I'm starting to get back into it again. Okay, so I just finished The Maidens. I didn't like it. I think what it tried to do was interesting. I think that direction didn't completely make sense and there were certain things that I feel like should have been explained better. And then the ending as well. I don't know. I don't know if I necessarily wanted more at the very end, but I mean, things made sense more. Like the things that I was irritated about made more sense towards the end. And then at some point I suspected, but I also didn't. The main thing I didn't, and I was like, but how does that explain the other stuff though? Like, I think I'm going to just give this one a 2 stars because unlike most of my normal 3 stars, like I am kind of upset at how everything turned out, which is funny because like in the grand scheme of things, I don't have anything against the, you know, like twists and turns that they chose. I just feel like with the information we had been given beforehand, it didn't fully line up to me. So yeah, I think this is a high 2 stars. Okay, yeah, so this one was an interesting one for me. I was really excited about it. I also really enjoyed a lot of this book. But I was so disappointed in kind of how it wrapped up, not the direction that it went, but how the direction was handled. I think some things didn't really make sense. I think the ending for me didn't fully make sense. I liked it. I liked that it went in that direction. I think that had a lot of potential. I just don't necessarily think that it was done well. I wanted to give it like a 2 stars to be like, oh, this is bad, this is whatever, but I don't actually think that's true because there was so much of this book that I did like, and the actual direction that it went I think was really cool. I'm gonna move this up to a 3 stars because, like I said, I friggin' loved a lot of aspects of it, especially the dark academia vibe. I think it was on point in the vibe department. Okay, next up we have Lore by Alexandria Brecken, and this was an interesting one. This is basically a modern day mythology story about every 7 years something ends up happening revolving the mythology in this world, and she gets kind of sucked into it, and it's kind of that experience and dealing with it. It's very action oriented, and yeah, let's see what previous me thought. Hello! Okay, so today is Tuesday, June 22nd, and I started listening to the audiobook for Lore. I had to buy it off of Amazon because it's not available on Scribd or my library, and I didn't want to use my Audible credit because it was kind of on sale, so it was only $10 for the audio, and I was like, I guess. Anyway, I'm enjoying it so far. I haven't gotten too far into it. Today just did not go as planned. Okay, feeling pretty accomplished. I got a good chunk into Lore. I'm really enjoying it. I managed to get a bunch of work tickets done while I was listening to it, and then I ended up getting sucked into all of the midday meetings that I have. Okay, so I have successfully finished Lore, and I really liked it. Like, a lot. I don't know what I was expecting necessarily, but I just love the kind of modern day, but mixed with, you know, the Greek mythology and things like that, and the gods and the problems that they were having, and there's just so much to love. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I will say I sort of wish the ending was a little bit longer. But for the most part, I think I'm happy with how it went. I just wanted a little bit more. I'm not sure where I stand with the rating because I really got into this book. Like, I really got into it. So part of me is all like, I should give it a 5. And then there's part of me that's all like, no, I think maybe it's a high 4-star, low 5-star. So I think I'll probably sit on 4 stars, but I friggin' really enjoyed this. Okay, yeah, so I had no clue what was going on when I started this book, and I actually ended up loving it. I think this was really fun. There was a lot of aspects to it that were pretty awesome. I love the modern mythology aspect. It's kind of got that like urban fantasy, urban mythology vibe to it. I loved the characters. I loved this story. I loved uncovering bits. I also loved the action-packed aspect to it. I feel like it was very well done. I also feel like it kept me very engaged throughout the whole thing. So even when I didn't know what the hell was going on, for the most part, I was engaged enough to get that information and, you know, find out what was happening. There was one thing that I did think was a little bit annoying, but it kind of resolved in a way that I found satisfying. I don't know a lot about mythology, so like I do the basic general stuff, but not enough to be like, yeah, I knew all of the characters and knew what was going on. I definitely didn't, but I feel like that doesn't matter. You don't need to know anything about any of the characters. Just know that like the general idea that mythology is a thing like that exists, and there's gods related to mythology, and that's pretty much all you need to know. And it fills in the blanks of kind of what you need because it's different in this world, if that makes sense. So I loved it. I loved it so much. I'm definitely feeling like this is a 5 stars. I feel like I would be interested in reading it again in the future. And yeah, I had a really good time. Okay, and the final book is Spoiler Alert by Olivia Dade, and this is a fan fiction based story, like rom-com story, about a world where there is a really famous TV series that is happening based off of a series of books. It gives me Game of Thrones vibes, although it is different. And there is a fanfic community that is really involved. in, you know, kind of fixing the mistakes of the TV series, and pretty much two characters that are involved in the fanfic, one of them who is also involved in the TV show, kind of are falling for each other, and then this weird incident happens where they end up meeting each other unknowing that they are who they are, and, you know, kind of sparks fly, and it's this interesting, you know, little rom-com story. So let's see what I thought. Okay, so I finally restarted and finished Spoiler Alert by Olivia Dade, and I loved it. I loved it. This does have miscommunication, or, you know, not talking about things, keeping secrets, lying type of thing to it, but I actually, for a majority of that part, it didn't bother me. It made sense. I got it. Like, there was a situation where it happened that I was annoyed. I think I got it. I think Olivia did a really good job describing the reason behind people's actions and thoughts and things like that, enough to make me be okay with something that I typically don't enjoy and don't agree with. I love the body positivity in this book. There is fat shaming as well, although it is necessary to kind of talk about that and have a character that is body positive. Part of me almost wishes that that wasn't such a big part of the story, you know, like that the romance had less to do with that than it did. Okay, and that is that. I actually really enjoyed this. I liked the body positivity. I didn't really want there to be as much of the fat shaming side of things, but it kind of made sense to the point of the story. And although the main character was very body positive, she had insecurities around her weight as well that was mostly society based, which I think was a point that, unfortunately, in this day and age, I don't think you can really disconnect them. Like, just because you're body positive doesn't mean you're not going to be affected by people that you care about being assholes about your weight. So I think that was very well done. I think there's just part of me that almost wished that it could have just been a story that wasn't about the shittiness of people being assholes about, you know, larger figured women or men. That being said, it's really well done. I'm rambling at this point, so I think my final rating would be a high 4 stars. Okay, and that is that. I had a really good reading month. I enjoyed a lot of these books. I hope you enjoyed this wrap up. If you did, be sure to thumbs up. Let me know in the comments section down below. Include this emoji to let me know that you made it this far, and I will see you in the next video. Until then, bye!